Hi, my name is Lee Mulcahy, and I am here with my friends Sean Cox, my fiance, and my friend James Hoagie. And the reason we're here is we're going to do a free form kind of talk, and I do want to address some points that our county commissioner made the other day. But if you guys could introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Sean Cox, and I fell in love with Aspen almost 30 years ago. I had a girlfriend who said, "You have to come skiing here. It's the most magical place on earth." And so I was a second homeowner here for 10 years, back and forth between here and Los Angeles. And then in February, I moved out here as a permanent resident, and just so grateful to be here during COVID-19. I couldn't imagine being anywhere else, and during that time, Lee and I really got to know each other, and he proposed to me. So I'm very excited about that.
Good morning. I'm James Hoagie. I'm a personal friend with Lee and just recently connected with Sean herself. And like to say hello.
James runs the encampment out at the Brush Creek Intercept lot. How's that going?
It's going good. I'm happy to have the job. I'm learning a lot of new things.
Right. So I have to explain this sign here. But first, I want to go to our county commissioner, and she made some statements, some of which were untruths. So I'm going to play that right now.
Thank you, Steve. My name is Lee Mulcahy. I'm grateful for many things, and the vice chair wrote to me, and she said that she was empathetic, and I would question that characterization because, as you know, Steve, we brought her 2,000 signatures from that were collected out in front of the courthouse, in front of the City Hall, and in front of the city market. And it was done by an 84-year-old widow who Kelly knows. She's our neighbor. And I just think that is the most disrespectful thing. I know that you say you've met on our situation in secret executive session, but that's not the same thing as a public session. I think we all know that. And I'm very frustrated with her reluctance to even talk about, since she represents APCHA for the board, with Rick Head refusing to recuse himself from discussions about our eviction from the home that we built. And I'm sad because I think that she wants blood. And, when you send a SWAT team to your neighbor's house, I think you're going to tie your political future to that. And, frankly, Steve, you were born here. But this used to be Texas between 1836 and 1845. And it is insane for us to think that she moved to our neighborhood just a block away 5 years ago and wants to order us out of our house at the point of a gun. And that's what government is. It's ideas that have to be enforced by the point of a gun. And there's libertarians and there's authoritarians. And sadly, my neighbor Kelly Kury is an authoritarian. She's ambitious, good for her. But I simply ask one small favor of her. George is going to say no, because I told him he had no cojones like 5 years ago during an interview, and he's never. Mr. Newman has been upset ever since. And I think with politics, we have to have thick skins. And the favor is our attorney. As you know, we have oral argument in front of the Court of Appeals at the end of July. He is having chemo, and he would like to postpone that for 2 months. And I know their answer. I know those city employees that you're frustrated with, I get it, me too, are going to say no. And I just think as a community, that is the wrong way to go down. I kid my neighbor, I call her Queen Kelly, bless her heart, but she wants war. We want peace. We just simply want 15 minutes in a public session that's going to start the ball rolling down the hill. Because why? It opens a can of worms. Why? Why does that matter? Because APCHA, your baby that you're getting ready to talk about, broke the law in multiple ways, multiple times. You know, Steve and I marched in Black Lives Matter 5 years ago with the local Aspen Jewish rabbi and the president of the Aspen Jewish congregation. And there's marches all over the nation. There's riots for the first time since the late 60s in this degree. Why? Because of people like Kelly, because of government overreach. We have to come together as a people, as a community. I know you guys are all 5 Democrats, but I'm telling you, as a Tea Party Republican, I understand injustice. I was out there in the streets with Black Lives Matter 5 years ago from Selma to Washington, D.C. So, yes, there's an insane amount of injustice on the criminal side. But the civil side, when you guys can break the law, your baby, APCHA, with impunity and get away with it, we need to examine the civil side too. I think I'm a little bit over. I'm so sorry if I went over. Thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Lee, for your comments. I think we'll do all the public comments, and then I think we have one or two comments that we wish to make in response to you, Lee, if you want to stay online to listen.
You know, as has been alluded to, I have lots of reasons to feel intimidated and threatened by Lee Mulcahy. He's taken to calling me a Nazi and a tyrant in public forums. You know, call me a tyrant, try to recall me all you like. Calling me a Nazi is really inappropriate and I think incredibly disrespectful to our Jewish community, who you, Lee, profess to care about. I additionally have reason to feel threatened and intimidated by Lee for recent behavior where he has addressed my young children when they're playing out in front of the yard at my house and telling them that their mother is trying to throw them out of their house and evict him from the house that he built with his dad. Completely inappropriate, completely has crossed the line, has caused me to have to request Lee to not show up unannounced at my house when ordinarily I don't mind if neighbors knock on my door and want to talk about county business. I think probably most alarming is Lee's unpredictability. And, you know, on one hand, within the same week, he invites me over to dinner at his house and yet calls me a Nazi and puts protest art out in the neighborhood, calling for my recall and making veiled threats to being a Nazi. So for all of these reasons, I could feel threatened and intimidated by Lee Mulcahy, but I don't, and I won't. And that is not the reason why I refuse and don't support giving Lee and his family a hearing at this board to talk about why APCHA broke the law or to present his documentation for compliance, because we have no interest in the Burlingame property. The BOCC has never been an appeals stop for APCHA compliance cases. Lee, quite frankly, has had many hearings in the courts. He has had a history of delivering his compliance documents to APCHA, which did not pass muster. And I additionally have suggested to Lee that he has plenty of ways to put his compliance documents out into the public venue, which I don't believe to exist, and that's why I believe he's not taken that route. He has called me arrogant for suggesting as much, even though this is a political question and those are political tactics available to him to use. You know, I have been mocked by people who, because I take Lee's language seriously and his threats seriously. He has, as very recently of this month, and him and his girlfriend suggested that Lee will protect his constitutional rights with his life. You heard here today that he expects a SWAT team to be sent to his house.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
So the BOCC and APCHA have made numerous misleading and false comments in regard to your case. And so this is part of them right here, but what else would you like to say?
So I'd like to address some of that because my neighbor said some bald-faced lies. The first one I want to address is the Nazi stuff. And this pertains to, I'm an American. It is my right as an American to do art. I'm an artist. And it is my right, my free speech right, to make art. And I did. And furthermore, we can recall our politicians, especially when they do an ambush on a citizen for criticizing them. Now, Kelly, Heil right here is Old English, and it's from the Old English verb heilen. So there is no reference to anything about a Nazi in this political protest art. However, even if there was, there's been a long art historical references in political art in Aspen to fascist symbols. Now, I kind of thought it was a joke because, I'm very, labels are labels and some are nonsense and some aren't. But a fascist is someone like the Crowns that have, that make weapons and bombs and they sell them to Saudi Arabia. That's more of a traditional fascist. Whereas, I kind of call them neo-Marxist on the Board of County Commissioners, but there were some, when the government makes propaganda, it's oftentimes what they leave out. And Kelly made another statement. She said, I had multiple hearings in the courts. Now, that's not true. I've had one hearing exactly in 5 years. It was last year. The judge, who was formerly the assistant county attorney, it's all interconnected, who was formerly a politician, had our one hearing. We could not talk about anything about the constitutional violations that were committed not by just APCHA, but by the judge.
And you have asked for hearings that have not happened.
Yes, ma'am. I have taken 2,000 signatures that an 84-year-old widow, Mama Sandy, collected outside the courthouse, the city market, and the city hall to our politicians like Kelly. And I don't care if I have the hearing in APCHA or the Board of County Commissioners, but why are they so resistant? Or even City Council. It doesn't matter. But why are they so resistant? It's because it's going to start the ball rolling down the hill. Why does that matter? Because they broke the law multiple times, multiple ways. And second, I can show compliance as an artist. She challenged me to do that. I'll put it on my artistic website online, no problem. Now, it's very, very concerning when politicians lie to support their case because, people trust them innately because we elect them, right? And with Kelly, she's, I kid her, I call her Queen Kelly, but that's because she ran unopposed. And, to go on TV and after coming to my house, after my mom making her babies, little baby caps, to say those things, I think it's insulting. And, if you are going to send a SWAT team to your neighbor's house, I think you're going to tie your political future to that act. I don't think there's any way around that, okay? We want peace. I feel like Kelly and the Board of County Commissioners, they want war. And as a community, they have taken this and divided the community. George Newman goes on, before Kelly spoke, he went on about 10 minutes. And he mentioned a date, May 18th, 2015, as the date that APCHA initiated their investigation. Well, my dad died a week later. So, at the top of my list, after I built the house, that, of course, I don't ever think they're going to evict me, but that is not my priority. When my best friend, the most amazing man, and he's been written up in the Aspen Times and in newspapers in Texas, because, and James, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. And you knew him. You went to Africa on the first water well we did.
We went to Africa 8 years ago and drilled for a water well, and what an experience that was. A lot of work went into that.
And Mama Sandy just got back from doing 3 more at schools. One for school for kids that are, what is the politically correct word?
Underprivileged.
No, not retarded. Anyway, they can't wipe themselves or whatever, so they need water at a school like that because they poop in their pants and that kind of thing. But at that school, and then at a wonderful school south of there, and then at a school right outside Sotique where we stayed. And I'm so grateful for my dad showing me the way forward, because if you, like you said earlier, if you can love your neighbor, whether they be in Kenya, whether they be here at, whether they're at the encampment lot, if you can love your neighbor, half the battle's won. And you've got to maintain your sense of humor if you're dealing with the government, right?
Right. So back to that, as a pro se party, you were supposed to have protections afforded to you by the law,
Right.
and those were completely ignored.
Completely ignored. They were supposed to file certificates saying they did that, completely ignored. The most important thing, if you're representing, the government in this case has 8 lawyers. Well, we got 1. And, I think the most insulting thing to my 84-year-old mom, who is amazing, from Kelly, was that when we asked her in this Board of County Commissioner meeting, because our attorney has cancer, and that is, when you're going through chemo, I don't know if you have experienced that with someone, but it is a rough ride. And he asked for a 2-month extension. We're very grateful. We have a Court of Appeals oral argument at the end of July. But because he's going through chemo now, and I would say tomorrow is the 4th, just pointing that out, he asked for 2 months. And Kelly said no. Quote, we are moving forward. No extension. What does that say to you? No mercy.
That kind of sounds to me like it's a fascist slur. Like, look out, I'm coming through with my steamroller. That's what it kind of sounds like to me.
We're going to move forward.
Could I interject with you?
Please,
for a second?
please, thank you.
How many months did you and your father work on the house when you guys were doing construction?
Years. Because, we did the glass work, the tile work, we built cabinets together. It's a homemade home. And that time with my father before, he didn't know he was, going to pass. I treasure that. And, our politicians, if you don't show them, if you don't bow and kiss their ass, then they get mad. And when I came back from, George mentions in May, but right a month later, I did a interview with the Board of County Commissioners for to help with the senior services. And they were like, no, we don't want you to help. And, what I said to George was like, man, show some cojones here, right? I love and am devoted to this community, and you know it. Don't just squish me in the dirt.
I understand.
I want to help. I'm a citizen.
That.
Yeah.
You were a big help to me years ago. To figure out, nutritious meals at the day center for these guys in the evening. I'll never forget any of that, Lee.
I love what you call it, the King's Breakfast.
Yeah, the King's Breakfast, Saturday and Sunday morning, right?
Yeah.
The hardest thing was if you were staying at the church on the overnight, they'd oust you out of there. You'd be out there freezing by 6:30 in the morning. And then the only 2 places there were actually to go to get warm would be Ruby Park or this little locker room underneath the gondola area. And you didn't have any other choice. Otherwise, you had to walk around till 10 o'clock in the morning, freezing, until you could get into the day center. That's when they used to open up at 10 in the morning. Now they put their hours back to 11. But yet in the wintertime, they keep the doors open a little longer. That way you have just enough time to get on a bus and go for the overnight shelter. That's the way they do it now. And
the stuff that I would bring y'all, was also a community breakfast at church. So the guys got together, we made it, and before they'd always throw it away. I'm like, no, I can make use of this. So it would go to actually the Methodist Church, the Aspen Community Church, and they usually have a small gathering of 8, 15 people, whatever, and then it would come to you guys.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I wanted to remind you, okay, we've got a bunch of those hotel pans, stacked up out there. So if you ever get in hot water with the churches, right?
No, I go by. We switch them out.
Okay.
So, yeah. Well, the other thing was the August. They mentioned in here, it's what they leave out. The August 25th date where they send a notice of violation out. Well, they send it out 20 days too early, according to their guidelines. And then they send out, we covered this on the last thing Mom and I did, but they sent out a 3-page letter on all the changes in the guidelines that were coming up because they were trying to hide their little mistake, right? Did they mention that they removed the 60-day cure period? Which is like the most important thing that, as a homeowner, you really want to know. It's been changed to 15 days. So before they gave you 2 months to cure the problem, well, then they changed it to 15 days and to cover their notice of violation that was issued prematurely. Now, that's what the whole case rests on, is this NOV. And then, which they don't bother to mention. And then October 1st, when they sent the final letter, they admitted, knowing that I was in Africa on a humanitarian mission. And yeah, so APCHA, as you say, they make up the rules as they go along.
Unfortunately, Lee, that's absolutely correct, okay? But what government doesn't do that, okay?
Right.
Okay? Right? That's where they all become copycats.
So do you think the government is weaponizing the law?
Well, absolutely. And that's real sad. APCHA, it's kind of like we're renters, because if you have a newer property like Burlingame, and you may have built your own house, but they have a little clause in there where they can go reassign it at their discretion.
I was a renter up in Snowmass Village, okay, with the Snowmass Housing Department.
Me
okay?
too.
And they had the rules in place when I was there. And the only problem one time where Joe Coffey had a problem with me is I happened to be working down in Eagle County. And I was doing that for maybe at the time 45 days. And he had mentioned to me, you're working against the rules, James. And I heard him loud and clear, so what I did was I jumped from that construction company that was somewhere in the envelope of Hitton County, just so I wouldn't have to be in fear that I was going to lose my housing.
Right.
And I did other things also, and they counted that as 1,500 hours a week. Mm-hmm. I had a place where I was changing out motors and cars, stuff like that, right, working for myself. And they counted that as part of my hourly requirement. What baffles me is why they didn't count your time for
building the house,
constructing the house, and when you create your art, okay? And you're in there working for hours and hours. And that's one thing I don't get is why they didn't count. That's work.
Sheriff says the same thing.
That's work.
Amen.
That's work.
Amen. It's unconstitutional.
And Mama Sandy, right? I know your dad was a great guy, and you guys do this wonderful stuff for less fortunate people, right? You guys are going out of the country, drilling wells, caring about other people, right? We're all functioning and trying to be respected in this community. What's wrong with some of these people? You ever ask yourself that?
Yes, sir. That's what I do, because I tell Kelly, I'm like, we want peace. She wants war. She wants blood.
Look, my deal is peace, love, freedom. God bless America, okay?
Amen.
God bless America.
Freedom, liberty.
Justice.
For all, right? That's all we're asking. Look, does the crime, missing a deadline, fit the punishment? Ejection, removal out of the house you built, and in essence, the community. And I don't think the crime fits the punishment. So let me do community service hours. Let me say, look, I'm the first person to admit I shoot myself in the foot, right? I admit that. I have made mistakes. We all make mistakes. But I want to say, listen, it all boils down to the you-know-whos, right? Why can't the you-know-whos come over and have coffee? And I will say, Mr. and Mrs. Crown, forgive me. I have made mistakes. I'm sorry if I offended you with exercising my rights as an American, but okay, I offended you. So let me stay in this community. Let my family stay in this community. And let us pay fines, because Kelly APCHA just instituted all these new fines.
Yeah, if I was in your position, I would just say, hey, look, everybody deserves a second or third chance, okay? Especially the ones that got a head as hard as a cinder block, and say, hey, look, I'll pay the fine, and Scout's honor, I promise to be a good boy from this day forward.
So you feel like you're being held hostage right now because there's things you would like to do in the community, that you started business, but you feel like you can't because you don't know what's going on?
Well, okay, yeah, and I think you feel the same way. But as an artist, I also do Uber. Well, you make a lot more in Uber if you got a new car, right? Not an old, white trash Suburban. But I would like to invest in a new car. But like you said, there's so much uncertainty in my situation. Does Kelly want to come and swap me? Does she want to remove me from my house that I built at the point of a gun? Because she seems to indicate that.
Well, and I think it's interesting, just recently in Greenwood Village, they had basically bombed a house, not literally, but they shot it all to pieces.
Grenades, high caliber, they took 2 Bearcats. Yeah, and this just was in the Supreme Court. Did you hear about this?
I heard a little bit about it.
So Leo Leck, innocent family, a shoplifter randomly went inside their home, and the police outside Denver basically destroyed the home. They took, MRAPs. They were. If you give people toys, right, all these military-grade weapons, right, it's human nature. They're going to use them, right? So the city, or the town, offers his family $5,000 after they condemn the house. $5,000. So they went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court refused to even hear the case. That's where we are. And I'm a little bit pessimistic, because if a man, as he said, in a civilized society, the government should not be able to blow up your home and get away with it and walk away scot-free. It shouldn't happen.
To what point do we wait before we completely go in outrage about the overreach of the government taking our rights away?
Amen.
It's the face masks, and we're adults. Can't we figure out if we're safe to go in a grocery store or not? If you're not feeling safe because you're not well, get somebody else to go for you, or go during the specified time. But our rights are just completely being infringed on day after day, more and more and more.
Amen. Amen. And, I didn't take APCHA so seriously. One, because I was mourning my father. And I did miss the deadline. I admit that. But this is America. A man's home is his castle. And if you build your own home, these petty politicians shouldn't be able to weaponize the law and remove you. We should be able to sit down, have coffee, and talk it out, and pay a fine, right?
Right.
Yeah. Tomorrow's July 4th.
And I am so excited. It's our Independence Day.
America's birthday.
Amen. Amen. I do want to read these. I thought SkiCo did a funny thing. They're joining a boycott of Facebook for July. And the comments, even from the liberals, say, SkiCo pulls out from mean words on Facebook while SkiCo owners make billions selling weapons to Saudi Arabia. And then, as always, hypocrisy is king and marketing is being politically trendy. Very impressive that SkiCo and its CEO does this with a straight face. Regarding free speech, I always come back to, I'm a free speech absolutist, and I believe that we should be able to criticize the powers that be without being punted out of the community. And yes,
Well,
ma'am.
and I just want to say, you are very outspoken about your feelings and your thoughts, and maybe no censor in your mouth. But as a person, I think you have a very genuine heart, and you would not hurt a flea for anything. I mean, like you said, you will defend your home, but you're not going to go out and hurt somebody intentionally.
People that, like you said, I mean, I've been taught to love my neighbor and love my God. And I have, you can always know something about a person from their parents. And what I do is, look, you may not know me personally, but I believe in the love of Christ. I believe in loving each other like you do. We got to pull together. And I have two parents that showed me the way. And I'm so grateful for many things, but I'm grateful my mom's a pistol and gave me a backbone. And my father was the same way. We're Texans. And, people don't understand that. But we in Texas are from the age of this, value liberty. And our liberty is more important than life.
Yeah, I know the motto. It says right on the bumper sticker, "Don't mess with Texas."
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Hey, we got to wrap it up. Anything you guys want to say to the community?
Lee, I feel bad for you on what you're going through here. I've tried to put myself in your shoes several times, right, and I don't know how you keep it together, but you're doing
I'm grateful.
You're doing a good job at it.
And I maintain my sense of humor with these people.
And just, it's good, okay? Just don't let this, with people treading on you, don't let that affect you up here,
Yes, sir.
okay?
Yes, sir.
Just, everybody gets treaded on. It's just a sad story on what's happening to you right now.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that.
It's very saddens me.